You find some punk wood that's like some rotten wood out there. These are beautiful. This punk wood is like light. It's like charcoal. It's basically like charcoal. It's going to light right up. And yeah, punk wood, charred tinder. What does this one say? Dried chaga. There's another horseshoe. See, it looks like a horseshoe. That's why it's called horseshoe fungus. All right, so you take these various types of dried funguses. Here's a whole bag of chaga. Thousands of years ago, primitive people could char this material. You get a chunk, and you put it in your sack, and you could protect this, and it would carry an ember inside, and when you set up your next camp, you could start your fire again. Being able to transport fire from one place to another was the essence of primitive life, especially in the northern hemisphere where we got lots of cold times during winter. Getting my hands cut. Hey, welcome back. We're in the great outdoors, northeast. It's getting a little windy, a little cold, but it's sunny out. I'm out here with my son. This is Lucas. We're out here, we're going to collect some tinder. We're going to get some shag hickory bark. We're going to make a fire, and then we're going to make char cloth. Why do you need the char cloth? Well, the process of charring cloth allows you to maybe make fire easier when it's not so pleasant outside. So on days when you can make a fire pretty easy, those are days you might want to make some char cloth. Lucas and I, we're gonna say hi. We're gonna show you how. And right now, to kick it off, I have to get to a meeting. It's Friday. I got an autonomy work party. It's where we plan out tonight's lecture. I'm going to show you a clip from last week's lecture. This is a clip where we're talking about mutual aid societies. The fact that so many doctors and nurses got fired this past year because of the vaccine mandates, whatnot, gives a lot of opportunity. And so one of the students asked during the question and answer session, what can we do about this? We structured some business ideas, and you might find them interesting. Let's go to that clip talking about mutual aid societies and the questions about how to organize our resources into a way that we can espouse freedom in a world full of tyranny. The way you can get in touch with them is by putting ads in front of their friends and family who care enough that can forward them to opportunity. And in America, I don't know what the name of the board is, but there was a job posting board specifically for people who aren't vaccinated. And it gives clients the opportunity to look for contractors or doctors that aren't vaccinated, and vice versa. They can. So it's it's an emerging market. What you have is not just an idea for a mutual aid society. You could have a business offering based around that. You could have doctors and other people paying to be listed. It could be like in America, there's a hardware, not hardware, like a home renovation maintenance service called Angie's List that has approved contractors, but people pay to see into it and people pay to be seen in there. You could create a similar structure and then put ads out there. Do you know someone who's lost their job because they're not willing to be vaccinated? Here's where jobs are. Here's where opportunities are. And you start pointing them in that direction so that they can broker. And, you know, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a massage therapist who's not vaccinated because I don't feel like someone's shedding on me while I'm paying for them to do massage therapy or whatever the situation is, right? So there's a problem that exists, and the answer to it is often the offer made by the entrepreneur. And then it comes down to funding. Where are you going to get your funding, Matthias? There's going to be somebody who's on the other side of the vaccine argument that says, I want to see this in place so those people can find work. Right. But you're going to need some copywriting, and you're going to need like a pitch meeting, and you're going to need to do that several times. You can get a project like that funded, and that can be very lucrative. It might not be a long-term thing. They might reverse all this stuff in 6 months and out the door with mandates, and people can work, and it's not a big deal. But in the short term, at least, this is a thing, and it could pay for itself and start doing good in the world sooner than later. And that might be bigger than the idea that you were bringing into the situation, but I think ultimately that's where it naturally would go. If it's 10 people in your life that have that problem, well, it's worth solving. But if there's 100,000 people that need this right away, it's like, it's even worth that much more to do it quicker, faster, better, to get a solution out there. It's a huge market. It's an almost instantaneously created market. That's why it can also go away. That's the danger. It could be ephemeral. And that would be great for freedom. It would be bad for your business. Which would you rather see? I'd rather see free, if freedom can rise, my business has to die because, okay, it doesn't do my business any good to thrive during despotism and freedom and not be able to get people to make that connection. Right? Like when you have to start selling despotism and tyranny to be in business, maybe you shouldn't be in business anymore. That's my thinking. So right now you have an opportunity created by that despotism and tyranny to service people who are in dire need, who don't have a plan, and who are up against it. And they're probably pretty stressed, probably the most stressed they've ever been in their lives. If you can help come be that low pressure area and connect them with options, you don't have to have all the answers, but you do know that there are answers out there, and you have to connect them through some sort of technological infrastructure of them making their offer or you posting that these people are over here.
Matthias, have you seen the course How to Build Intentional Communities with Stefan Verstappen?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely a piece of the puzzle with those medical mutual aid societies. It's just more
cool.
how to make those connection, how to find those doctors and nurses who have been let go because they haven't taken the mandated vaccines with the other population who haven't had the vaccines, where hospitals are requiring that you are double, triple jabbed in order to essentially support your wife at an ultrasound. So that's where it's at the moment. So we need to try and accelerate these kind of parallel medical services. So yeah, this medical mutual aid society is just more, how do I get started?
Well, now that you're at that point, what if this happened? What if you showed up and Verstappen showed up and you asked your question and he gave you more details? Is that something you'd be interested in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He should be interested because you went through his course and you have questions of an advanced nature. And if he answers those, Joshua can make a marketing video from that to help Stefan pass that wisdom along to his audience, right? So you get your answer, your questions answered. He gets a piece of marketing to continue people going to see his course and consider its value. It's a win-win circumstance. And now you could ask him basically anything you want in that interview structure. So as a student went through the course and you're trying to practice this, and we say, hey, Stefan, can you assign an hour to help a student think through creating medical mutual aid for Australia, and he would understand the relevance and meaning of that situation right now. I'd be surprised if he had excuses so deep that we couldn't get him to that meeting.
That sounds amazing.
Right? So you'd get to ask the source, get his perspective. Now, he might say, I don't know much about it. Maybe it's just like, he might tell us that, guys, I don't know much about it. Okay, great. Have you ever done it before? Who would you recommend, Stefan? Well, there's this other guy who does that. That's all he does. Great. Let's have him come in then, right? So if we don't get the thing we're looking for, we're going to get a step closer to the thing we're looking for, right? That's what
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, and even as a kind of thing that I was thinking on the side, completely separate to this, is a kind of a reciprocal thing that I could offer in exchange, is perhaps Australianizing the the different types of businesses that you can set up. The legal structures is where I'm going. So if I found someone that could Australianize those legal structures, then you could essentially Australianize the Stefan Verstappen course. Because I think that's maybe one aspect that Australian people would be interested in, because that American and Canadian legal structure doesn't replicate to Australia. Maybe that's something I can offer in return, and find someone in Australia or in the community who could do that.
Yeah, and that's a contact. Like, I don't know of anyone off the top of my head. We haven't had any attorneys or barristers or what's the other ones? Barristers and solicitors. That's how it works in England, right? Barristers and solicitors. We haven't had anyone of that type come through from Australia. So I could point you toward like attorneys in America and Canada, and that'd be similar, but you're right. The legal structures are different down there. So how can you Australianize that methodology. And then what do you have? You got a new offer. You got the actual offer plus teaching people how to do other medical mutual aid societies. You went through the trouble of figuring this thing out. Now you have that offer to make to other people. That's almost every ad copy is written. It's like there's a big problem. These people have tried to solve it, but their solutions have fallen short. And that's because they wouldn't put in the work to do this. But we put in the work to do this, and we've now got this new product with this feature or benefit. And that's why people buy stuff. It's part of the reason, right? Compelling introduction of information through copy. So you eventually would need copywriting and a website and software and application and algorithms and APIs, all this great stuff. But that's down the road. All you need right now is write up your business use case. How would you pitch somebody in an elevator on this bit? Like, give it a name. If you give it a name, it starts to become real. What's your medical mutual aid society going to be named? And then from there, what's the goal? And is the goal temporary to deal with just COVID, or is it a bigger frames, a showcase, surface work area that you have to work from? Is there more opportunity than just what you're seeing? Or is there less opportunity? Maybe you thought you saw something really big and it's really small, and you get some numbers together and verify that. Or you saw something, you think it's big, but it's a lot bigger than what you thought. There could be that aspect too. So what do you think? What's your next step, Matthias?
Who do I reach out to? I'll reach out to Stefan if he's got a contact, or I'll use his website to reach out to him and share my idea.
That's a good idea. Reach out to Stefan on Discord, see if he has an email and you can get in front of him. And if you can't get in touch with him in the next couple of days, or let's say a week, then send a message on Discord to me and or Joshua, and we can mention it at our next meeting with Stefan, because we don't meet with him every week. It's like, I don't know, once or twice a month that we check in with him, I think.
I could probably email him as well for you.
Boom,
Matthias.
circle of reference. Look, you got other people on here, Matthias. Like Chris is like, I'll just email him for you, and that's all it takes to get started. And then if he needs to check on if Matthias is worthy of his time, he can ask me or Joshua. I'll be like, yeah, I brought it up in Q&A, and I think it's a good thing for you to check out, and it will build value for your audience, Stefan. And if he was not inclined to do it, I'd be like, oh, this is the part where you don't like to do marketing. You got this great thing, but you don't want to tell anybody about it, right? You'd be like, yeah, you're right. Like, okay, let's do this then. So I think we can make it happen if you're persistent, and that's a good part of the lesson too.
Are we just doing the coffee piece with me? Are you just doing the coffee with me?
We're gonna make char cloth.
Are you just doing the coffee piece with me?
No, we're not doing coffee today. We're gonna make a fire, and then we're gonna make char cloth, and then you'll be able to make fire with the spark in the future.
Nice.
Yeah? Nice. Are you excited to be outside?
Yeah.
All right, let's go scout around and find some fire making materials.
Yeah. Mine is really good to saw a tire.
Okay, should we collect some of that?
We could use a branch, the whole branch.
How about we just leave it here and we'll pick it up on the way back. Leave it right here in the path.
Hey, how about I just put it right over there?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More pine.
More pine. Let's find, can you find me a shag hickory somewhere with the bark so we can start a fire?
Pull this.
All right, let's go this way.
Okay. Because that would be really good. I'm the one that makes use my saw for cutting the shag hickory. The saw.
Yeah.
I use my saw to cut the shag hickory. I don't remember what the shag hickory looks like.
Okay.
So if you just continue pulling, I think that's the shag hickory over there.
Well, I see a couple from here, but let's see one that's easy to walk to. I mean, I see one. There's one over there. There's one over there. There's some water.
So watch out for that tree just in case it falls. It's like bented.
Yeah, it is. It's leaning. So we always gotta be careful in the woods.
Yeah, we do. Trees fall. This would be nice.
That would be good, right?
Yeah.
All right, leave that in the path. We'll pick it up on the way back.
I will do
Right there. All right, good. We'll just follow this deer trail out.
What deer trail?
This is the deer trail. What you're on. That path is made by animals.
This?
Yeah. We follow it all the time in the winter. Remember we follow the tracks out here?
Yeah!
This is that same trail, but it's not snowy yet. But if you look around, you can still see animal signs and tracks
Yeah.
and scat.
This guy looks like a zebra.
No, it's just a tree that fell in the woods and broke. There's another tree
That's cool vine.
right there, broke.
Dad,
Yeah, this vine's cool.
look at that tree. That's the whole thing is cool. Looks like it's crossed off some places. Where's the shag hickory? Hey, I think I see a shag hickory right over there. Dad, is that shag hickory?
Yeah, let's go to it.
That looks like the easiest one to go.
All right, let's go.
Show me.
This is the fence line right here. See all these trees lined up right here, Lucas? And here's the barbed wire.
Did you even go this way?
Yeah. So when you cross that line, it's easier to see the barbed wire in the winter, but right now it blends in pretty well, so you got to be careful. And then
It should be, because someone actually just look at the tree.
now right here, this is a shag hickory,
The shag hickory
but most of the shaggy bark,
broke off.
well, it's up higher. And so there's another one over here, another specimen I can show you. Let's see if I can get that back.
I'm getting my saw out quickly.
All right. All right, Chief.
Is this shag hickory?
Yes, this is the shag hickory.
Okay. Looks like a horn. Come over here. That looks like where animals could sleep.
Yeah, animals would definitely sleep right inside here. Inside the rotten trunk of the shag hickory. Now, careful. If you're going to use that, you want to just pry it away. So I would get right back here. Get back here with it. Oh, come over here like this. If you get here, you have better leverage. So like, hold on,
I
hold on.
I got place.
Okay.
See
Careful.
right here?
I don't know if I like that because your blade's pointed up. So look, watch. Come over here. Get in behind here like this. Okay, and you're just gonna rock it a little bit, and it's gonna big pieces are gonna come off. Okay. Look, for instance. See, like that.
What happened to here?
So, okay, so just grab these pieces, these little pieces. Don't worry about your tool. Just break little pieces and put them in your browse pouch. Right there. Okay.
I only know how to start a fire, but people that don't know how, they could watch us.
That's true.
And strangers could watch this show too, if you wanted to. If you ever find it. If you ever find the show, you can watch it if you don't know how. It's really hard.
Okay, hold on.
You should not do that, please.
All right.
This-
All right, so I'm gonna get this piece here. I'm just gonna get behind it. I'm just gonna turn my knife. I'm just gonna get.
I can't really see your hand.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna help you. Did you see how I got the blade behind it, and I cracked it out like this? So watch. I'll get my blade behind this, and I'll just crack it out behind it. So you're not cutting it. You're not
I
chopping
know I'm
it.
watching it, but I putting this up here.
Yep. That allows me to use both hands. That's a big help. Thank you, Lucas. Okay, so we're not going to take a ton off it, but it is a dead tree, so it's not a big deal if we take these pieces out there.
It is a dead tree.
All right, so bring it back down. I'm going to close my knife.
That's his knife. That's my dad's knife.
Lock it.
That's my dad's knife.
I'm gonna break these pieces of bark.
Bacon.
I'm gonna put them in your browse pack, and then I'm gonna give you your knife back. Good shot. That's good. Pieces like that, all right? Thank you, sir. That's your first shot.
That's my dad.
That's your first.
Hey, do I see how you?
That's your first shot during the vlog. Thank you for help.
You're welcome. Should we go now?
Yep. Let's go back.
Let's see if we can shine any. I think one of those little shot hickories over there.
Wood blocks here. All right, this is where we're gonna start our fire, Lucas.
Okay, you want me to put the tinder in?
Oh, not yet. We got to process the tinder. Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? You like having hot snacks in the woods?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
It's not even hot.
I'm going to make a fire real quick, and then we're going to make the char cloth. All right, while little man is eating there, we're going to gather some sticks, some brush. We're going to make a quick fire. And the purpose of this fire is not to cook any food because he's already got hot food. The purpose of this fire is going to be, we're going to insert some tins. You guys have had Altoids, that type of tin. We're going to use those types of tins. We're going to put some dry cotton inside those tins. We're going to put it into the fire. We're going to let the fire burn down. We're going to let the tin cool off. Do not open it when it's hot. You'll lose your char cloth or whatever charred material. We'll talk about other charred materials as well. I brought several samples for you guys. All right, so we make this fire. We put the tin in. The tin has dry cotton. The cotton carbonizes in an oxygen-free environment. We're going to show you how to do that. And then from then, going forward, you got these little pieces of black cloth. They take a spark very easily. We're going to talk about transportable embers. We're going to show you some charred chaga, other type of charred natural materials you can use to carry fire. And while I'm gathering this brush, while I'm getting some wood, while I'm building a fire, let's go to clip number 2 from last week's autonomy lecture, season 6, week 9. This is talking about Benny Wills' project. He recently launched a course on interpersonal speaking skills, communication skills. It's called Parrhesia, and he's just broken his $50,000 mark. It's a very successful launch. He's going into, I think, season 3 or season 4 this January. Let's check out the commentary from the Q&A session in the wee hours of Saturday morning, probably about 2 or 3 a.m., and I'll be right back. We have a client, and I have a friend. His name's Benny. And he's married to Sonia, and they're expecting their second child. And when I saw Benny here a couple years ago in Hartford at the Red Pill Expo, he's an excellent on-stage speaker. He's the master of ceremonies for the Acapulco and Red Pill Expo conferences, these sort of things. So he's got this talent. but it's how do you get booked more often for such gigs? Or how can he take what he's doing and have a more lucrative income? Because he was kind of getting a short shrift on the deal that I caught him working on. I'm like, hey, come over on Sunday after the conference. We're having a picnic. He's like, I got to keep working. Like, you know, so I found out he worked like 5 solid days. I asked him what he's getting paid. And I was like, well, you got to make a better offer. Let's work on this. So Benny and Sonia went through Autonomy, I think season 3. And at that point, he had a poetry book. He was hoping to take the market, and marketing the poetry book is how he was going to support himself, his new wife, and soon to be child. So like, that's a good plan. It could work, but it's not likely. And here's why. The poetry book doesn't have enough money in it for you to effectively market it without using it as a loss leader connected to your high ticket, high value offering, right? And then doesn't make immediate sense. But when we start breaking it down and showing him, it's like the better thing could be to encapsulate this thing you do really well, really easily. A lot of people respect you for, you're known for it. Make that your high ticket offer. Then people are going to be interested in your poetry book. People are going to be interested in watching your meme show. Some people watching your meme show are going to be interested in your course. It's not public speaking. It's not interpersonal communication. It's not knowing how to make your point and be heard. It's like all of these things. So people are like, I don't need that course because I don't do public speaking. It's like, maybe that aspect of what he's teaching can help you over here in being able to assert yourself to your father-in-law, or these sorts of dynamics that people have. So each student comes in there looking for, they need help in a certain area. What Benny's teaching are the skills of communication. People take that into their unique situation and apply them, right? So whether it's Benny's course, which is a form of verbally doing what you're doing in writing, right? They're almost symbiotic, you know? Or Derek Brose's Holistic Self-Assessment. I don't think the book was huge, maybe 60 or 80 pages. And he broke each chapter down into a week where he did a lecture and question and answer session. Now it's a substantial course. That course is evergreen. Like, he doesn't need to go remake it all the time. It's like, it's there for people who want that aspect of self-development to get started, get to know yourself, and then get to know your environment. It's a good strategy. So I would guess somewhere between Benny's Parrhesia course and Derek's Holistic Self-Assessment, your writing version methodology of getting to the same points of catharsis so people can move forward, I think are very similar. And a lot of the same things that they're doing to market their offerings, you could do likewise. You can learn about them in marketplace.autonomyagora.com. That's the Christmas catalog of courses we've produced over the past couple of years of the freedom variety. And I know they need help. Creators like that need help on projects. So if you like and think there's synergy and you have the ability to make an offer, you know, maybe you make Benny an affiliate offer and say, hey, graduates of your course, what are you marketing to them? Nothing right now. Well, I've got this, and it goes symbiotic, and it's the writing version of your speaking, you know. And then when you get a bunch of people going through your course, you can say, hey, after this, maybe take Parrhesia, right? There might be some relationship there in the future. Any of these creators are open to it. Ow. Not leather gloves. There's still prickers out here at this time of year.
Should I fold this in the fire pit?
No, just make a little pile of them. Yeah, all those little pieces. We want really thin, tiny little pieces like this. We're gonna break these pieces up. This is good for our starting material here. So let's see if we can film this like this.
It's mine, Tom. I thought I was doing something.
Well, you work on this end and just do just like I'm doing. Break all these little pieces up.
Wait, I only got one more piece out.
Well, get the pieces with the brown here. See all these right here?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah. Just break this off right there. Right down here. Yep. And hold them in one hand as you break them with the other. Okay? And so what you're doing is you're stripping these branches, and this is our fine stuff. Okay?
Hold on.
Are you trying to make a place to put your sticks?
Yeah.
Here. Look. Hey, put them on this.
No, no, no. I
Yes. Put your fine stuff on this because you want to keep it from getting wet. Put them right on here. All right, so we put all the fine stuff right here, right? And then we got these little sticks. I'm gonna put them right here. And that's the process, okay? Little sticks and the fine stuff, separate piles, right here. Okay. So we got pine needles, we got little thin sticks, and now we're left with, well, there's a couple more on here.
I have humongous clicker.
Yeah, pull that pricker out of there. You got gloves on. Six. All right, so this is my this I'm going to use as my lift stick. These I'll use as my side sticks.
Now we just have all sticks. Here.
All right, we got that. Let's go to the next step.
Here. Dad, I gave you some.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna put a couple of these on the bed of the fireplace here so that our little stuff doesn't go right on the ground. And then now we take these little sticks all right here. Take these needles and get them all down the bottom here. Now, I didn't go through the trouble of making a bird's nest for this. You don't want to use a real bird's nest. Let me show you what a real bird's nest looks like. And here's another one. All right, so in this case, we just want dry things that are going to catch a spark, and then we're going to pull our littles over top, let the fire eat up through.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah. Same.
Here's what I'm going to
Do
do.
that.
Oh, take this paracord, put it over there, will you? I'll break up this little stick.
Dad.
Here, real quick.
I just put it over near my knife.
Yeah, thank you. Near your
Near
knife.
my knife.
All right,
Near my knife.
let's see. Let's
Do you
use,
need anything else?
this is called Fiber Light. It's a good little fire starter.
What does it do?
Well, it's got like some wax and some wood shavings. It comes with a little rubber band. You could cut up this rubber band and get ignition with it if you're out of fuel. Take a little
Oh,
pinch.
nice.
The reason I use this Fiber Light, or at least I keep it in my bag, I got several cans of this, is because you can get it wet. You can get this straight up wet and it would still light. I'm gonna put some right there.
Dad, could you give me that when you grow up?
Yeah, you can have it when you grow up. All right. How many strikes do you think it'll take?
8,
8?
18,
I think 3. It should take 3.
16, 18.
Okay.
8.
1, 2. I got fire. And not for nothing, it didn't stay. I was going to say I didn't even hit the Fiber Light. So I still have that. So let's try again.
It takes more like 8.
There we go.
It just takes
Alright.
takes 4.
Back up a little bit. All right, so we're just going to get this burning. We'll put a couple of bigger sticks on here, but the point is just to get a little fire so we can make the char cloth. And I'm going to take you over here to the table. We'll look at the char cloth tins, and let's do that.
Yep, let's do that.
I'm going to sprinkle on these pine needles right here.
It's exploding.
All right, so it started to die out, so that means I had too much material. So I'm just lifting the corner because I created the frame at the bottom of my fire lay. So I just lift up a little bit, and then I let it back down. And if it needs to eat more, if it needs more air, I lift it up. I can move some of this stuff around. Fire loves chaos, and it likes to eat its way up. So you want some dry stuff. There we go. So we should be good.
That's only some baby ground.
Good job, Chief. Got to be responsible with fire. All right, for this part, we got a fire going. Now this is my tin that I do crafts in. Right?
Yeah.
This craft is called char cloth. And I got a tin. I have a smaller tin. It's like an Altoids tin. Oh, it's got some char cloth in here. This is what it looks like when you're done. This will take a spark very effectively. Let's see if I could put a spark onto it. We'll put that piece there for you. I'm not going to bother detaching this from my bag. We're just going to hit it. Do it live. There we go. And as you can see, it's caught in ember. It can get hot if I hold it. But from there, you could light your tinder and see how it still carries the ember. So that's the idea. It's ancient technology. So is doing the it's hard to put it out actually. So is doing the chaga. I've got some chaga mushrooms, some horseshoe mushrooms, some other dried funguses and tinder that you can make into carbonized fire starter. And I'm not going to put this back in here because it'll probably catch fire. So that's what you could do. You just crumble it, it turns into nothing because it's been oxidized. Here's another tin I use for it. And here I've got the char cloth in a little baggie to keep it dry in case I got wet. This was, I don't know what kind of tin that is. This was like an old Altoids tin. This was, I think, a Christmas tree shop decoration type tchotchke thing that got repurposed. Just put a little hole in the top, put as much char cloth in there as you want. And for today's demonstration, let's use the old-fashioned Altoids tin. Let's take this char cloth, put it in here.
Yeah.
Real nice. Then we're gonna take, Lucas had some old stuff that he had outgrown. Look, Star Wars with the stormtroopers and stuff. So we're gonna put these pieces in here, just 1-2 piece. That's good enough. You guys will be able to see the effect. Now we're gonna go throw this into the fire. I'm gonna follow you with the camera, and I want you to drop this in the fire over there, but don't drop it. Now this tin doesn't even have a hole in the top because these aren't airtight. So it's gonna do very nice, just like this. It's gonna send out the gases as the cotton heats up. It's gonna carbonize. And now let's get a shot of you dropping that in the fire. No, don't get your glove. No. Keep the tin closed. Tin closed. And actually hand it to me and I'll put it in there.
No.
Yeah, because I wanna place it right there. Right there. And now you know how and where to place it. I didn't give you good instructions on that. Thanks for helping me out, buddy.
Welcome.
All right, so now we just let the coals burn down. That's going to do its thing. It's going to be plenty hot enough. Let me zoom in for you. I'll actually do this. All right, there's our tin. We're going to let that burn down. Those coals are going to carbonize the cotton inside. We have to let the tin cool, and then we'll open it up. And while we're waiting for that, let's go to the Sunday Autonomy Q&A, where we're going to talk about conspiracy, New World Order, these types of things. A student brought up the question on the Sunday Q&A with the other students, connections between fascism and communism. Let's go ahead and check it out and learn a little history, and then we'll come back and show you the final result of today's project.
So the Soviet sort of conspiracy theory was that in the aftermath of World War II, that the German and the Italian, presumably fascists, infiltrate the West. And so, the Soviets and these urban Antifa guys are trying to allegedly protect us all from the fascists. And that's why they need to go, take over Poland and Germany and build this big wall in Berlin called the anti-fascist rampart and all of that. So I'm always like, oh yeah, those Red Army, Soviet anti-fascist guys, they're kind of whack jobs, whatever. But then you find out, okay, schooling comes from the Second Reich, Prescott, Bush, Standard Oil, Siemens, they were in collaboration with the Nazis. So it feels like there's a little bit more than a molehill, but a little bit less than a mountain to these claims. And I was just wondering how you think about that, and does it relate at all to sort of what's going on with the New World Order and sort of the European Union and the German influence there and NATO, and like your book cover that you showed, it was the American flag with the Union Jack. So it was really about England and America. But is there a relationship there also with sort of the potential of actual fascist infiltration? And does that relate to the New World Order and EU and UN and such?
Yeah, it does, because it's not freedom. And so let's go back to what are the fascies? The fascies was a bundle of sticks with an axe that's used to cut those sticks to the same length. Bundled with it, it's a symbol of power that comes from ancient Rome, but it's in our Senate, right? So the fascies are all around. It's on various forms of our money, right? So that's like power through unity and singularized purpose, right? That's what that kind of represents. So that's not corporations merging with government. So the fascism of the 20th century is different from the concept of the fasces from which it draws its name. Surprise, surprise, it's not the same thing. So fascism is where you start to have corporate personhood in the 20th century. And that, it gets coined by Mussolini as fascism is the merger of the corporations with the state, but it's a little more nuanced than that. It's a particular flavor of authoritarianism that only arose in Germany after the Bolshevik Revolution and after Antifa gave rise to Hitler, not Hitler. So Hitler wasn't there, and Antifa didn't stand up to Hitler. These thoughts and chaos type of driving events were there, and they were a threat to German nationalism, which gave Hitler the power from the people to defend themselves against the communist infiltration. So now they have to take up the opposing side. And the Western countries were all too happy to be like, hey, we got a lot of corporations that'll help to rearm your whole country, and let's get you guys rolling, even if we create a Great Depression in America from doing it. because that's what happened. All that capital went over there where you get things penny on the dollar. Who's going to buy American goods or American whatever, right? They're getting slave labor over there basically in Germany after the Versailles Treaty. And then by the time you get to the end of the war, you got British and American intelligence, which is this guy, Nelson Rockefeller, Dwight D. Eisenhower, C.D. Jackson. That's the psychological warfare. Let me show you in the history blueprint real quick, because this is an important aspect. Let me go find Nelson Rockefeller here, because their wartime psychological warfare is still going on today. So Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller. So we're looking for. He's up to a lot of different things. So let's see where I would find. It would be under P, because I think it was Psychological Warfare Directive. PSB. So he did psychological warfare operations, but it was called the Psychological Strategy Board. And this led to Truman's presidency. This led to the Operations Coordinating Board, the OCB. But this is where they pick up Kissinger, and Eisenhower is the Supreme Allied Commander. They are using Averell Harriman's people are involved in this. So you have a group of people that do psyops, and they are the people that go in at the end of World War II to find these camps. Billy Wilder made the 1945 film Death Mills. He directed that for the PSB. So you got Nelson Rockefeller, George Kennan. He's instrumental in like the creation of the World Bank back in the day. He's a dirty bird. So you Gordon Gray, Tavistock, all coming through psychological strategy boards. Let me just it was a committee of United States executive formed to plan for psychological operations during World War. Well, let's see. This is the one afterwards. So PSB is what they did after World War II. What's the one that they did? Is it OPC? Opposite Policy Coordination. Yeah, that's where they started. Oh, So OPC was another one of these programs. This is where they picked up the Nazis. This is where they created Operation Paperclip and got Kissinger and these other guys involved. So during World War II, you've got the United States and the British working on a strategy of how to capitalize once they defeat the Nazis. But the Soviets, who were also created by Western technology and banking, they're coming in from the East, and they get to some of these places first. So when these two groups of psyops, executive warfare people from both sides, the Soviets and the British, get together, they have conversations on how to best frame out the narrative to go forward to exert the most power. And the British and the Americans are like, here's how we're going to frame it. And then the Soviets are like, here's how we're already framing it. And the British and the Americans are like, it's a bigger frame. We got to go with it. And it's a bigger frame because it had a lot of the communist elements in that frame that was set up for globalism, right? So what we are told about the war, what happened during the war, how people perished, all that stuff is told to us by the people who did it. And if we don't dig in to those elements, right? If Averell Harriman and these other skull and bones type people, financiers, are the ones who funded the office park that became Auschwitz, right? Then you have to question who made all those logistics happen. Did that happen naturally, or were there railroad tycoons building all these facilities so that these other things later, these atrocities, could happen? And what role did IBM play in the ability of the Germans? So they basically, they had a place where they could conduct an experiment doing things that they couldn't do in their own countries, Britain and America specifically. And then they just kept adding fuel to that fire, providing them with whatever they needed until the point where it took a blaze, and then they could get their war on again and finish what they started in World War I. the decapitation of German industrial power and patent holding and the internationalization of all those assets such that a single country could never lose those assets again. So the point is, you got to learn how to see the situation for how they tell it to us and then ask questions. Like, we see Billy Wilder, I think, in his Death Mills film that I was shown in public school, like at a young age. Like, these Germans were bloodthirsty, crazy people over there, and they killed people and stacked them like cordwood. Oh, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. Those people, you later find out, those people died of typhus. That's what typhus looks like, when people starve and get emaciated like that. And why did they have typhus? Did the United States have typhus? No, we had DDT. Did we deny them that technology and cut off sanitation and fresh water to those camps to make that happen? Yes, we did. It's a strategy of war. The British taught us how to do stuff like that. So what happened and how we fought it wasn't an American thing. It was a British influence. Our older cousins are like, hey, we know you guys know those camps are there, but we're not going to bomb them. We're going to let them continue to run. There's a bigger plan that they're framing out. And that continued to evolve. And I think they got a lot further with these things than they thought they could have. I remember the first time when I lived in DC, they had just built and finished the Holocaust Museum. I went through, there's 2 different buildings. And I remember right before I left the exit of this building, it's like a staircase to walk outside. They had this big map on the wall. And it's like, here's the camps and the Allied, and they were told not to do anything against them. And then it's like George Kennan, that guy I just mentioned, the dirty bird. He's the guy who's like, there's State Department officials who are working on behalf of the British Empire and running American policy. And that's how a lot of the things that around the world, America has a bad reputation, but it's not because of the American ideals that that reputation's there. It's rather because another group came in, sullied and dragged our ideals through the mud and made us take up an imperial empire building fontis front piece facade for their failing and crumbling under its own weight endeavor to enslave the planet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. So what I'm kind of thinking is then that sort of there's this, with World War II, there's sort of these 3 poles, but they're all being sort of manipulated by the same people. So you have sort of the Soviet, you have the Central European fascists, and then you have sort of the Western folks. And there's actually sort of a common set of people in control behind the scenes of all 3. And they're just trying to do this experiment and military exercise, just see what sort of happens and which side, which philosophy is able to win and take over.
Yeah, they're trying to move yes. So what you said is correct. Like, there's a small supranational group of people that use these nation states as like their pieces on the board, and that they are trying to move the Overton window towards slavery as fast as possible. Part of how they do that is getting us to dehumanize people on the other side of the world. And then that allows us to contribute enormous amounts of money to our defense, e.g. weapons to kill those people on the other side of the world. And since the precedent was set in World War II of dropping atomic weapons on other living beings on the other side of the planet, like, that's a thing now. It's a threat. It's been used to control. Yeah, they didn't stop there. They got chemical weapons, they got biological weapons, they got neuro weapons, they got electromagnetic weapons, they got hacking 1s and 0 weapons. All for what? Because they don't like freedom. Because they don't think people should be free. Oh, pesky people being free. Well, if freedom wasn't that natural state, you guys wouldn't have to put so much artificial energy into trying to control it. Right? Just like creating a dam. The natural state is the water goes downhill. We want to hold water back indefinitely and harness it. Okay, you're going to need a lot of work to make that Hoover Dam, and a lot of concrete, and a lot of lives going to be lost, probably experimenting to try to figure out how to do something on that scale. But
would you say that freedom can work anywhere as a fundamental philosophy?
It should be able to. I guess it's dependent on the people participating at that current time. I think of like the lifeboat scenario or the desert island Lord of the Flies scenario. There are like captain of a ship during a storm scenario. There are certain points in life when chain of command and authority is very, especially if the authority has the knowledge and experience and people survive because of it, that can be very useful. But you should also have the choice to be like, I see the error and the captain's heading toward the rocks and I'm out of here. Right. So I don't believe you should be enslaved if you don't agree with the logic and reason, but the people with logic and reason also have the right to kind of keep their distance, not cross causalities with you. But it doesn't mean that you can't be out there having your own causality and surviving. It just is kind of like an insulation, recognition and insulation buffer system.
Cool. Okay. Nice.
And I don't say any of that like, oh, you know, the world is run by people to make anyone feel helpless. It's like, that should be helpful, because until you know that, you're going to continue like being naive in how things work. And it's not freedom, justice, in the American way yet, but I think that's a great idea and we should work toward it. And it should be like a real thing and not like, for the amount of money that we spend to go in war with other countries, it's like, why can't we go there and set up like some like business or something where their value is translated voluntarily? Oh, it takes too much work. Great. Work translates into money in business, right? If the easiest thing is for you guys to just drop bombs and kill people, think about what this other thing, how profitable it could be. I think that the people that run this place just lack creativity and the ability to adapt and evolve into a better, more pacifistic way of running things. So they continue making war because it's super profitable. And by that, their profit is not getting money. They print money out of nothing. Money is worthless until we associate our utility and value with it. Their purpose of printing the money is the more people they can have following their agenda as opposed to the agenda of the individual, the more power they have. So as long as there's 100 million people out there making war weapons and planes and missiles and all these things, they're going to continue to get their way. But if these other people had other options or better offers or said, no, thank you, I don't need that from you, there's other places like, you know, the world will be a different place. But because these people print money out of nothing, those places pay the most. Right? Contractors for Raytheon, contractors for Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, all those places, you know, those are Cypher in the Matrix eating the steak. All those dudes, like, they know the money's not real, but look at all the real stuff they could buy with it. You know, look at all the real stuff they can buy with the lives of others. They're like soul suckers. All right, while that is cooking on the coals, I brought these two bins out for you. Let's see what this first one is. This is already charred material. This is moss and some horseshoe mushroom that has been charred, and you can see the pieces of that. Let me take a piece out for you. So, can you char moss? Yes. Can you char other forms of tinder like this that would carry a nice spark for a long time? Yes. All right, so that's moss, horseshoe mushroom. Let's see. These are cotton t-shirt pieces of char. Let's get that open. All right, it's just charred sock, charred t-shirt, these types of cottons. You've got them, and now you have the reason to char some and carry it with your fire kit. Let's see what else we got over here. That's pre-caught. Maybe that's lint. I think that was lint yet to be charred. Punk wood. This is a good one to char. You find some punk wood that's like some rotten wood out there. These are beautiful. This punk wood is like light. It's like charcoal. It's basically like charcoal. It's going to light right up, and yeah, punk wood. All right. Now, some of you want to see what does the before picture look like. Let's see if we can find this other case to give us. That's right. Charred tinder. What does this one say? Dried chaga. There might be some horseshoe. Oh, here's horseshoe fungus. I think this is horseshoe. All right, that's a piece. This could then be charred. A lot of other things you could do. Here's horseshoe fungus that grows on trees. This is the raw before you char it. Here's some raw chaga. Here's another horseshoe. See, it looks like a horseshoe. That's why it's called horseshoe fungus. All right, so you take these various types of dried funguses. Here's a whole bag of chaga. Show you what that looks like. All right. So, thousands of years ago, primitive people could char this material. You get a chunk, and you put it in your sack, in your, you know, whatever luggage they had back then made from animal skins. And you could protect this, and it would carry an ember inside, and when you set up your next camp, you could start your fire again. Being able to transport fire from one place to another was the essence of primitive life, especially in the northern hemisphere where we got lots of cold times during winter. Actually, while we're here, let's just do this. Let's take this kettle, right? Christmas tree shop decoration, repurposed. It was in somebody's garbage. I was like, oh, that's a good bush pot for making charred tinder. I'm throwing some chaga in here. We're gonna put the lid on it. Right? This lid does have a hole. And then let's see if I can follow this over. We'll put it right next to this one. Right here, put it on these coals. And then we're going to take this stick, surround it with some coals. Maybe we'll even keep this fire going a little bit. Yeah, good job, Lucas.
So then we could get warm too.
Yeah, we could get warm too. And we'll smoke these two out. So that's the first one. This is the second one with the chaga, and then we'll check back. All right, where's that rig? So if you want to create smoke signals, you throw green stuff
Yeah, like this.
and wet leaves.
This is one kill. It's making like a tornado.
All right, the fire is burning down. We got some coals, that cotton in there, the chaga and the other bigger tin. It's got to be smoked by now. Normally, I would let the fire go out. I let that all stuff cool and come get it the next day or later that night, something like that. But in the interest of keeping it short for you, I'm going to attempt to fashion some sort of tongs or sticks and remove the smaller case from the fire. And I can move that tin easy enough. Let's see if I zoom back out. Okay, we don't want to open the Altoids tin, but I do want to move it over here so it can cool off and you guys can
How
see the
about the
results.
big tin?
The big tin, I also don't want to open it, so I'm just going to move it over here to the edge and let it cool, start to cool off, and then I can bring it over to the table when it's all cool. We're losing light, so I wanted to just get these out of the fire so you guys could see the results, and we'll move on. It is easy to rip. That's the whole thing. That used to be a t-shirt. When it has all the moisture of the cotton in there, it's hard to rip. And after you carbonize it like that, it's very easy to rip.
Here's my dad.
All right, buddy. Now, what are we going to do here? We're going to see the final results of our char cloth experiment out here in nature.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to show them to you in a minute, but first I got to tell them about the Grand Theft World clip from last week. The clip we're going to see is from Dr. Robert Malone. He's the creator of mRNA technology. You might have heard of that. It's part of the popular injection that they're pushing out there. What's interesting is Dr. Malone not only has said that his technology that he developed, the mRNA technology, is not the appropriate technology to implement in this situation, but he goes further. He's talking in terms of totalitarianism, despotism, globalism. He's talking about tyranny on a larger scale, and for someone of his stature and magnitude to be talking about these topics, I think it's meritorious and worthy of your consideration this week. Before we go to that clip, let's check this out.
Yeah, let's check it.
All right, this tin, it's cool to the touch. Do you want to open it and see what's in there? Let's see. Or should we do overhead shot and open it? I think so you guys can see close-ups. All right, let's do overhead shot. These silly droids.
Let's see.
All right, hold on.
I try and open
I want to
it.
go ahead and open this one right where it's at. Here. There's a hinge side, so flip open the front there.
Okay.
Right here so the camera can see it. Oh, look at that. There's our char cloth. Right?
Is it easy to rip?
Go ahead, see if it's easy to rip. Oh my goodness, it just comes apart. That means it's char cloth. You couldn't do that with real cotton. Here, move in a little bit. There you go. All right, cool. Let's put that back in there. All right, cool. So that was our char cloth. This is the one that had char cloth from before and had my the plastic bag of char cloth. This came from the other container. This is the new char cloth. And now we're going to go to the chaga. Chaga pieces were bigger, but they were already dry, right? So I think they'll have charred fine. Go ahead and pull that lid off and I'll show the camera.
What's on this?
Just like lift right, like that.
Let me see.
What's in there? Pull a piece out.
What?
Right?
From here. This is hard.
So yep, it's hard now, and it's carbonized.
It's carbonized.
All right, here's another piece. Now that'll carry an ember. That's thousands of, probably 150,000-year-old technology right there. The charred chaga to carry fire. If I remember my days from anthropology class back in college. All right, so let's put all these tins back in this tin.
Away.
Now we got some new charred chaga for your tinder kit, Lucas. Let's pick up the skins. Let's pack up this show. Let's make sure our fire's out. Control room ready for launch.
This is a fundamental phenomena of the human mind, is this ability to become hypnotized by focusing all of your attention on one small thing. Once that happens, people lose their ability to have rational thought and judgment.
Welcome to Christy Lee Independent Media. That's KLIM.news. I am joined today by Dr. Robert Malone, perhaps one of the most qualified people to talk to about mandates and vaccines, as he was part of the approval process in the sense that he helped develop the mRNA technology. So welcome in, Dr. Malone. Thanks for being with me today, and we can go uninterrupted.
Thanks, Christy. And I got to make a plug now. I'm officially signed on part-time as the Chief Medical Officer and Regulatory Officer for the Unity Project. And this is a fascinating coalition and alliance that crosses both deep, let's call them granola head liberals from Malibu Canyon and places like that, as well as conservative voices backed by substantial resources, and really acting to unify the resistance to pediatric enforced mandated vaccines all across the United States and all across the world. So please do have your listeners, please do consider visiting unityprojectonline.org and see what we got going there.
All right, sounds good. And I wanted to just go ahead and dig into a video you sent me that was really looking into the psychology of the mandates and the psychology behind the narrative. And it suggested that the reason so many people continue to buy into the narrative, even as more information and data comes out, is almost as if it's a hypnosis. And what we're seeing is really what they talk about in this video, an anger and a nastiness towards those that won't continue to buy into the narrative, as we saw with Joy Reid on The View just lashing out on her guest when she just suggested, as we know and has been said over and over, the vaccine does not prevent the spread of the virus. And so it ends up being this irrational anger. And wanted to see what other insights you thought you had about that particular video, because I just really liked how it dug into the psychology behind everything.
So thanks for giving me open door to riff on that. What Christy's referring to is the work of Matthias Desmet. Okay, and he's a psychologist. He's also a statistician. He's at the University of Ghent. So this is Belgium. He's a European, but he speaks fluent English. Many of us are very impressed by his thinking. Bobby Kennedy, for instance, has met with him personally and spoken to him about his theories, as have many of my peers. I think Matthias is onto something, and he calls it mass formation psychosis. So when he says mass formation, you can think of this equivalent to crowd. So it's crowd psychosis. That's what we're really talking about.
Is it really the same thing as groupthink, mass formation? Is that like a more
very different?
Not the same. Okay.
Groupthink is something that occurs in smaller groups of typically government officials or think tank types or whatever, CIA people, whatever, folks that are trying to solve a political problem or some other problem, and they get together and they get this problem of, as experts, they all have a tendency to want to agree with each other, and really don't often tolerate dissent very well, and don't actively develop or look for consent. In that kind of groupthink environment, you'll have a few influential leaders, and everybody will want to conform with whatever they're saying. What Matthias is talking about is something profoundly different and deeper, much harder to break. There's easy ways to fix groupthink by just bringing in dissenting voices and making sure you give them platforms. With mass formation psychosis, this is like hypnosis. It really is hypnosis. Okay? We're not supposed to talk about Nazi Germany. This is what happened to the German people. If you live in Europe, or you have a relative who's a Holocaust survivor, or also if you've lived behind the Soviet Union curtain, Eastern Europe, etc., this is a fundamental problem that people have, is understanding how can, for instance, the German people, who are highly educated, very liberal in the classic sense, Western thinking people, how could they go so crazy, so deep into crazy land, that they were doing what they did to the Jews? How could this happen to a civilized people? Okay. And this is the explanation for that. It has been a major focus of academic inquiry for decades and decades in Europe. So with what we're experiencing here, you have to have a set of preconditions, and walk with me back to, remember, 2019. It seems like forever ago. Okay, the precursors for mass formation psychosis is you have to have a situation in which the population is decoupled from each other. They don't have social bonds. Okay, this is everybody on their little cell phones and everything else. Okay, where we're fragmented into our communities, Facebook communities, and other things. We're not, yes, they're tribes, but we're now in a situation where there's sub tribes. So everybody's fragmented. Nobody's feeling connected. Okay. There's got to be a lack of sense making. The world has to somehow not make sense. What's happening in the world? It just seems to be overwhelming. Things don't make sense. Remember how we were all kind of thinking this back in 2019, and we had the elections and electoral fraud, and what was going on? Clearly, there's big forces at work there, and nothing made sense. This leads to free-floating anxiety, which is the source of the greatest psychological pain. Okay, and my wife, for example, experiences this all the time. Many people do. So for her, she has this chronic sense of anxiety. She wakes up in the middle of the night, suddenly alerted to something that she's been dreaming about. Wakes me up. So this sense of free-floating anxiety. Things don't make sense. We're no longer connected to each other. And we also have free-floating discontent that things aren't right, and I don't like it very much, and I'm not sure where to put my finger on it. A lot of us had this feeling. Okay. Now think about what happened when the virus broke out. The world obsessed over this virus. Suddenly every software person in the world was an expert on molecular virology and epidemiology. I had to deal with them. We all suddenly became obsessive experts, spending all our time on the media trying to figure out what the heck is going on because it didn't make sense. And we're trying to protect our children and everything else. When these conditions happen and then the entire population gets focused on one thing, okay, it forms something akin to hypnosis, where all they can think about, they're totally obsessed with that one thing. This is what happens with hypnosis, is you can hypnotize somebody and get them to focus on just one little tiny thing. And you can do surgery on them. They won't feel it. This is a fundamental phenomena of the human mind, is this ability to become hypnotized by focusing all of your attention on one small thing. Once that happens, people lose their ability to have rational thought and judgment. Okay?
Well, and then before you go ahead with that, it wasn't just people personally obsessing over what was happening, but anytime you turned on the TV, we had the counter going below, and so it was just constantly being shoved down everyone's throats to think about nothing.
Even if you weren't obsessed, you had all this fear porn coming at us all the time, 24/7 through every channel. Okay. Now, was this intentional or was it just selling clicks? I don't know. I can't go there, but there's a lot of signs that there was an intentional component here, that we're sitting in a situation in which we have been actively managed psychologically by some entity that has financial benefit or power to gain from doing this. This gets to the point about global totalitarianism. But regarding mass formation psychosis, once this happens, there's two key things. Everybody gets focused. They have this fusion of their discontent, this focus on a thing, and then leaders step in that seize this moment. And when they're identified as leaders or they're promoted as leaders, and the crowd can see no evil, they can hear no evil, they can speak no evil. Okay, and those leaders can say anything. It does not have to be true, and the crowd will believe it. Furthermore, with this kind of process, mass formation psychosis that we saw in 1930s Germany, and we've seen in other situations, outside dissenters, anybody who says something that is contrary to the narrative must be attacked. These situations must have a common enemy. This was well described in the 1984 book of George Orwell, where there was this constant threat of the Eurasian forces. They were nebulous. One never really knew where they were or if they were going to attack, but they were always used to drive fear in the crowd. Okay. So this crowd now that's formed has central leaders that are lying to them all the time, like Tony Fauci. And as you see, there's now a world in which those people that have been hypnotized in this way, you can tell them until you're blue in the face what the data are, what the facts are. You can show them video clips of Tony Fauci lying. It doesn't matter. I was in Tampa the other day, and a physician asking questions came up in the line, brokenhearted. She has many other physicians and medical professionals in her family, and she's disaffected from all of them. And she said, it doesn't matter how much information I provide to them, how many papers I provide to them, what data I provide to them, they can't hear it. And it's true. They literally can't. They are hypnotized. And this has happened all over the world. It's been actively promoted. It is the consequence of all this censorship and propaganda, as you point out, that we've been subjected to. And when it seems to you that the rest of the world has gone mad, the truth is they have. Okay. And the question is, what can we do about it?
Exactly. And with this video, though, I mean, it kind of ends with almost no conclusion in the sense that it's saying there may be nothing that we can do about it other than try and break the hypnosis by continuing to speak up and trying to get this other narrative out so that it's just not the mass formation narrative that is being put out there. But in the end, if and when that does not work, the other solution is that we talked about, this Atlas Shrugged idea of breaking away from society and kind of building our own simultaneous economies in different areas, whether it be education with homeschooling, different information dissemination platforms, things like that. And so is that where you see things ramping up, is just more of the breaking away from society that is under this hypnosis?
So thanks for bringing that up. So I spoke to Matthias about this, about where does he see this going? And it's, as you point out, it's really a bit grim. He thinks that this mass psychosis has developed to a point where the global totalitarianism is unavoidable. It will sweep over us. We're seeing it in Austria. There's talk about it happening in Germany, right? In Austria, they're saying basically, number one, they're locking down during the holidays. And they say, you will be vaccinated. Now, that flies in the face of the data, which shows the vaccination won't stop the spread of the virus. It doesn't matter, okay? They will impose the vaccines on you. They're talking about doing this in Germany. They're talking about all kinds of mandates in the United States, like you say, including for the children. Think that through, okay? Children don't get bad disease from this virus. The only reason, and it's not even logical, to vaccinate the children and cause them to incur the risk of the vaccine is to protect the very elders who aren't adequately protected from the vaccine. So this is happening. And Matthias believes that it's now to a point that it is going to progress through the population, whether we like it or not. There's not much we can do. We have to continue to try to provide information, accurate information. And by the way, we had some great action that was, I didn't expect anything to come out of the special session in Tallahassee in Florida, but it did. They exceeded my expectations. But in terms of Matthias's projection, you're right. He basically says there's a couple things we can do. We can substitute the fear of the virus, which is irrational, for a greater threat. We can break through to people if we help them to understand that what we're seeing is a coordinated global focus on deploying a global totalitarian solution. Okay? Totalitarianism is a bigger boogeyman than the virus is by far. Losing control to Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum and BlackRock and Vanguard is a bigger threat than SARS-CoV-2 is for you or your children by far. Okay? And people can hear that. They can see it. Matthias has tested it. And you can break this fusion in their minds if you give them something that's even of greater concern, which is loss of their freedom. And you know that. You can hear it in people. When you make it clear to people that they're on the threshold of losing their rights, they get activated. And when
But
they
then you
hear,
have Fauci, who just recently said in that interview that we have to think more in terms of collectivism, which is funny because that's kind of what this video that was exploring the psychology is talking about, this collectivist thought, this idea that people are coming together for the greater good. And he said that's more important than the individual thought. So
that's right.
With that.
So he's making it clear which side his bread's buttered on. And Bill Gates and the big economic forces, there's no question. So this is one topic area that a lot of people get. And often the breakthrough thing is they're going to force my kids to take the jab. And suddenly people wake up with that one also. And then they form a fusion between their anxiety and sense of psychological discontent and lack of social bonds and social and sense making with that thing. Okay. But the problem is all those underlying things haven't been fixed. The real problem, to be blunt, is that our society is sick. It's sick in a bunch of ways. And I think the only thing that can come out of this to get us away from that, to start to heal us, is this idea of think global, act local that is behind intentional communities, which is what you mentioned. Meanwhile, while all this crazy is going on in the world, the rest of us that are able to see through for whatever reason, maybe because we got fired from our job, or we experienced mainstream media first person and realized how corrupt and twisted that world is. Or maybe we experienced big science and all the corruption within big science in a very brutal first person way. Things have caused some of us to be able to be a little more skeptical about what's going on in the world and see through things. In Eastern Europe, and folks that have family history relating to the Holocaust, they get it. Those people, the red lights are flashing, and they're saying, guys, wake up. We've got a big problem here that's going on. You even have some key members in the Catholic Church now bucking the Pope and talking directly about human enslavement through global totalitarianism. Fascinating stuff coming out from the Vatican right now. So we can't get beyond this if we don't find some way to heal ourselves. And I think we got to start that healing process locally. And so this is the message that I've been trying to promote in these various speaking engagements is a message of healing, not division, and of trying to empower people to start building local community, telephone call lists, work through your church, whatever your organization is, build on that. Find physicians that will administer early treatment. There will be another wave of virus. It is hitting us now. It's moving through Europe right now. It's going to be moving through the United States. I got infected just a couple weeks ago. I cleared it pretty quickly, but my wife lost taste and smell. It is going to roll over all of us. And I think that now is the time to build local community, start to form networks with each other, whether it's through homeschooling networks or call centers or providing information to older people who are often home alone, scared and not able to access the internet. And if we can do that and then start to move towards building clinics, local clinics, finding docs that will treat with monoclonal antibodies and variety of early care agents. There's a few courageous leaders politically in a lot of scared chickens. But I met with a bunch of people. Ron Johnson is on fire. Mike Lee is on fire. Others are starting to wake up. There is basically the Republican side is unified that these mandates are wrong in the Senate. Now, we're having trouble breaking through the other side, but angry moms, I think, are maybe the thing that saves our democracy. I'm not being facetious. So I think, and then there's the legal side. A lot of people, I spoke at the Heritage Foundation. They're pretty convinced that the OSHA mandates will fall legally. There's a lot of progress if you use religious exemptions in getting exemption from the required jabs. The medical exemption is a lot harder to defend legally, but the religious exemption is pretty strong. And then, for instance, in Florida, DeSantis and I met with Joe Lapido on Friday. They have put together with their legislator, they put in place a law that you cannot mandate the jabs in Florida. And then they put fines for those. And suddenly the Disney empire, which is a huge employer in Florida, has reversed its policy. Other organizations now are calling and rehiring people that were previously terminated for failure to get the jab. The tide is turning in Florida. I can tell you for sure. And Florida is about to put out literature and information to its population. And I'm not at liberty. I don't know all the nuances here, but there's about to be government-sponsored, accurate information that gives people hope. And as you know, DeSantis aggressively pursued administration of the various antibody cocktails to good effect. So there is hope. And we did an intervention in Alaska, and the governor there has done so. That what I mean by an intervention is a bunch of the physicians in our group, this International Alliance of Physicians and Scientists, it's over 13,000 strong. We've basically been jetting all over the country, parachuting into different communities. They just had one in Texas last weekend. While I was in Tampa, they were in Texas. And we're making a difference. We're catalyzing communities. Those communities are coming together. They're acting politically. They're acting in Tampa. Part of what we did there was a big fundraiser to raise money for defending physicians from the hunting and other behaviors that are happening that are knocking physicians out, making it so they can't practice medicine. So there is hope, but we still got a long way to go. But I think over the last 2 weeks, we've seen some significant progress. So I don't want to leave everybody thinking it's all doom and gloom.
I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think the beginning of the interview where he talked about the mass hypnosis and mass psychosis aspects,
which we had an intermission a couple weeks ago. Or a month
yeah, exactly. We're Johnny on the spot with information like that here at Grand Theft World. I couldn't help but hear resonance in him talking about the key of hypnotism. He said the key of hypnotism is that you focus all of your attention on one small thing. And that had alarm bells going off in my head. What is the small thing that everyone's going to be focused on starting right about now? What does Omicron mean? It's the word for small. It's the one small thing that they're going to focus on to make new lockdowns and these sort of things happen. And that's the focus of the mass hypnosis. So it's almost tongue in cheek that they skip 2 letters to be like, we're bringing you Omicron, and all you have to do is concentrate on this one small thing, and we'll fix everything, just like we did 2 weeks to stop the spread.
That myopic sort of visionary pattern, right? Just like you're just have that very condensed.
On the flip side, I think that was I've seen many of Dr. Malone's interviews. He's interviewed with Ricky Varandas and several other people that I know. And he usually talks about his specialty, which I'm very interested in. He's the creator of the mRNA technology that they're pushing and mandating. And he thinks it's not the right use of, and that's great. But he also talked about New World Order stuff. And I was like, wait a minute. Here we go.
Yeah, he's a little bit
unholy
more,
Trinity.
right?
He's got part of it, the Vatican, the Nazis, Swiss banks. Notice also there's a picture of Stalin. How does he figure into the story? And this is a book that, look how many pages I have marked in this book. And the red ones are the hot topics.
The John Loftus.
Yeah, Loftus and Mark Ahrens. So in #1 international bestseller from the author of The Secret War Against the Jews. You got to check out this book. It's one of a couple. And I do still have an interview with John Loftus I have yet to edit and release. And that's not on purpose, but I'm catching up with my video editing. Anyway, I'm sure whatever history is in here, it's not repeating. We don't have to worry about it.
There's no unholy alliance between some of the largest organizations.
I think the worst of it is I have 2 different books. They're both named Unholy Alliance. So it's a popular term for what's going on out there.
Well, Trilaterals over Washington, wasn't that Sutton's book? And that has to do with Trilateral. Again, we're dealing with 3 entities. I think it had to do with merging like the East, the West, and some other, having these non-for-profit or non-governmental organizations, not-for-profit or non-profit organizations around the world essentially tried to push for a unity and perspective and narrative and governance. And that had to do with like a uniting like China and Japan and Korea and those, the East with the West. And yeah, it's just an interesting and how they did it and the mechanisms they used in order to fulfill that goal. So get another try for you, another triangle.
No, that should be good. We'll just continue to let it run out of fuel.
That'll be enough water.
Good job, buddy. Thanks for your help. Give me 5.
Cheers.
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 He's got hot chocolate.
I got hot chocolate from George. That's BB-8. Hot chocolate. Cheers. And my dad and the camera and his phone and all of our beautiful stuff.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come